Jewels, shiny things, glow, gems, glitter, wealth, gold, indulgence, the Tudors, and jewellery.
I was struggling to think of a video topic for this month. I didn't especially want to talk about plague or deaths or what the Tudors thought about pandemics because, well, lockdown life kind of saps enthusiasm for researching what you're physically living through. So I thought about distractions and beautiful things, and that got me into jewellery with all the glamour it can bring. There's a certain kind of pleasure that comes from artistry and the shine of beautiful, indulgent things. The Cheapside hoard was found in 1912, the stock of a goldsmith or jeweller hidden during the Commonwealth of Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell. Rarely displayed in its entirety, nothing better shows the tastes and loves of the 16th century gentleman. Containing Colombian emeralds, topazes, Brazilian amazonite, Sri Lankan spinels, iolite, chrysoberyl, Indian rubies, Afghan lapis lazuli, Persian turquoise, Red Sea peridot, Hungarian opals, garnet, amethyst, all displayed to their finest in all manner of adornments. The Tudors loved precious stones in all the ways and means they could get them. Jewellery could be a dynastic proclamation, a statement of family ties, of your allegiances, political obligations, expectations, dynastic strength, stability, and above all, power. The art of jewellery. So jewellery's always been used to convey political power and fabulousness, but fashions in jewellery drastically changed over the Renaissance. Simply put, technology and design completely changed, combining to create a completely new style. The rise of Europeans exploring and colonising the globe changed jewellery trends in Europe. The trade routes into Europe over the 16th century were bursting with precious stones. Vasco da Gama had found a direct sea route to India on his voyage around the Cape of Good Hope over the years 1497 to 1499, so merchants and artisans could now get gems from India directly. The spread of the Ottoman Empire into Eastern Europe brought a more stabilised trade route from Persia and East Asia, and the colonial forces of the Portuguese and the Spanish in South America not only secured more raw materials but brought new art styles. Seaport cities became hubs not only for gemstones but new crafting techniques being shared across the span of continents. Venice, Barcelona, Lisbon, Antwerp, Amsterdam all became focal points for the gem trade and cutting-edge design technology. And the technology of faking it. Don't assume that the gems you see in paintings are all real. Glass stones, rock crystal, colourless zircon and fake pearls were just as common as the real thing. It was enough of an issue in Venice that the city authorities had to put severe sentences in place. 10 years exile and loss of the right hand. In any case, rural and urban elites and their social copycats wanted luxury items from the far-off reaches of the world. The world beyond the confines of the Mediterranean was full of refined, mysterious people and their equally refined, mysterious goods. The high cost, the rarity, the difficulty in getting them, and the lure of exotic worlds that they represented made jewellery a must-have item and talking point. Humanism, the increased interest in rediscovery of classical text, changed art style as well. Artists were inspired by the style of surviving ancient Greek and Roman art, and the distinction between jewellery and art was not one that existed in the 16th century. Artists were often apprenticed in gold workshops to learn accuracy, clarity, before branching out into sculpture or fine art. But back to the point. Jewellers didn't exactly copy or revive specific styles or techniques. Roman goldsmiths didn't leave manuals, and ancient jewellery wasn't circulating around enough that they could see it in the way that we can see it now. It was the revival of themes and patterns of classical mythology that developed a medieval Gothic world to the revitalised world of the Renaissance. The process really hammers home the splendour of Renaissance jewellery. Goldsmiths and designers became specialists at certain techniques within their trade, and commissioning or creating a piece for sale involved a really specific chain of creators. A piece of jewellery would be designed by an artist or a painter, such as Holbein. cast by one goldsmith, engraved and enamelled by another, and then set with stones by yet another one. This encouraged the blend of styles and the spread of ideas characterised by Renaissance jewellery. Your designer could be German, the enameller Italian, the stones set by a Burgundian. Techniques, designs and patterns could all be distributed as well by the new wonder of the age, the printing press. One such example that is still in print is Benito Cellini's The Treatises of Benito Cellini on goldsmithing and sculpture. He covers niello, filigree work, enamelling, stone setting, foiling, diamond cutting, casting, gilding and much more, really demonstrating the wide variety of skills in the wheelhouse of a high quality goldsmith. And a lot of them were completely new skills or completely revitalised during the period. Gems of the Middle Ages had tended to be just simply polished, just give them a big rub, set in fixture, with the gold work considered to be more important than the stone. So it's sort of like an ornament showing off how much gold you have. It was the size and colour that made them expensive or valuable. This changed over the 15th century as gem cutting techniques improved. The cut of the stone and the number of facets is what gives the gemstone the shine. The advances in cutting made the stones multifaceted, so more sparkly and impressive in candlelight. And the more sparkly they got, the more people wanted them over plain old gold. Jewellery as wealth. So, it's pretty easy to access your wealth in the 21st century. You go over to an ATM or a bank, put in your card, it reads it, you've got instant access to whatever money you have at the point of contact. But access to wealth is much more difficult over the 16th century. For a start, banks don't exist, whether that's a good thing or not. Well, so there were no banks, and a family's wealth might be based on their land and their tenant farmers. Wealthy, influential, incredibly powerful, yes, but doesn't exactly leave a person flush with vast supplies of cash at hand. The elite classes, merchants, even yeomen needed goods that were small, easy to carry, that could be exchanged. So they invested in jewellery, which you can swap and exchange very quickly for cash or credit. Local economies in the world of proto-banking relied on systems of credit that were very often object-based. A merchant might pawn his napkins or his cloak to fund his next voyage. A duchess might put up her clothing as collateral to raise an army for her son. A queen might use her jewels to settle a debt. Portable wealth was more valuable than coin, and the rich kept their treasures on them. Which is lucky for researchers, as pawnbrokers keep good records and we can get a real sense of what people owned in their respective values. Places like the Low Countries were credit centres and marketplaces for luxury commodities, and money flowed from these cities into the pockets of Europe. Cities like Bruges, which was the leading market in Northern Europe, had no tolls or taxes on luxury consumption to encourage the flow of trade. Being given a chest of small coin, which through devaluing, clipping, maybe forgery, might not be worth the value that's printed on it, is bad for business. But gems, uncut, in settings, in jewellery, well, they never lose their value. It's not shiny, it's medicine. It is a truth universally acknowledged that gemstones have special powers. Or at least people in the 16th century certainly thought so. As Hermes Trismegios wrote, the reason why gemstones have more magical power than anything else is because their luminescence and transparency resemble the appearance of heaven. The knowledge and belief in gem symbolism was as near to universal as any idea can be. The lore, meanings and powers connected to gemstones were hundreds, if not thousands of years old by the 16th century, and carefully recorded in books and manuals for the distinguished scholar and the hobbyist. They were called lapidaries, and they listed the properties of gemstones for anyone who wished to know. Neoplatonic thinking was the rage of the age, and jewels, through that mindset, were seen as semi-mystical in their properties. They were part of the true philosophy, the grand unified theory that united all mankind in a grand harmony. Tapping into the power of gemstones and their harmonies would allow mankind to make changes to their world and potentially their God-given destinies. Gemstones were connected to the elemental energies of the universe, so particular types of stones had powers against specific ailments, problems, or threats. Agates could turn bad weather into fair. Sapphires are good for an eye condition. Diamonds would promote chastity, which is where the association of them for wedding rings began. Do not believe this nonsense that it was a marketing campaign done in the 1930s. Diamonds have long been used for wedding rings. It's the fact that they're indestructible and so strong, so it makes your love indestructible and strong. So if someone comes at you saying that Tiffany's invented this, just tell them I said they were wrong. Anyway, emeralds had the powers of Venus. Rubies radiated the heavenly and divine perfection of God. And you could even carve symbols on them. So you could carve zodiac symbols on them. So you could bestow the wearer with their special properties. So a scorpion for Scorpio could heal fevers and protect you from poison. Gemstones were magical, and you could have their powers improved by a professional. In a bustling cosmopolitan city such as Paris, over 30,000 people worked as magicians, astrologers, or sorcerers. They would advise what you could do with your gemstone to make it more powerful. They probably advise having it cut even more, adding more facets. Gemstones are repositories of divine or planetary forces, so the more you cut a stone, the more light will be let out and increase its incredible cosmic power. Wearing carved and cut gemstones is not simply fashion, but it's a way to keep yourself safe and influence the forces of nature that surround you at all times. Or gain invisibility. You can also do that. Jewellery as fashion. Of course, the Tudors also love jewellery as a magpie loves jewellery. It's sparkly, and they want as much of it as they can get or uncomfortably wear at any time. Modern taste might dictate that less is more, but that's not the Tudor way of dressing. Less is not more. More is more. So wear more every single time you can. The start of your collection might begin with a pendant. It's the most common jewel and replace the bog standard brooch that was the standard medieval accessory. It's so 14th century. You could wear a pendant on a necklace, a gold neck chain, fixed to a bodice or worn on the girdle, which is the chain around a woman's waist. These pendants were designed to be seen from both sides. You can imagine how a heavy jewel might twist around during the day, so they have an equally impressive design on the back as well as on the front. And you can even buy functional ones that were built with toothpicks or ear picks or little compasses set in them. These pendants might display devotional scenes from the Bible or the sacred monogram IHS. Portraits and mythology are also popular, so take those classical influences into fruits, foliage and scrolls surrounding nymphs, satyrs and dragons. Sea monsters, ships, mermaids reflect the global exploration of European states. Your pendant might be customised with the initials of the wearer or your spouse, making pendants highly personal and closely associated with the owner, so closely associated that we simply don't have very many of them left. Families often destroyed them once the wearer had died, almost like a funerary rite to say goodbye to the dead. Once your pendant is in place, your look would not be sorted without some rings. Rings would be worn on every finger and the thumbs, and on more than one joint if possible. Medieval rings focused on the purity of the gold, but Renaissance fashion called for them to be highly ornamental and studded with gems. Not only decorative, they have practical purposes. For recusant Catholics, they might incorporate signs of your faith or feature 10 hidden little stones so you can say the rosary without ever owning a forbidden item. A ring might come with a hidden space under the bezel where you could hide a scented rag or a little scrap that you could smell when a bad smell was around. And for the gentleman who has everything, there are rings that come with sundials, clocks, and closed compasses, the tools you always need to have on hand. Earrings came back into vogue over the later half of the 16th century as headpieces became smaller and women's ears became visible again. They were often simple pear-shaped pearls or jewelled drops that were suspended from a pierced ear or tied around your ears. But jewelled letters, geometric designs or fantasy creatures were common, and they're not only worn by women. Men, fashionable young men, might wear a single earring, especially if they were at court. For the discerning lady, bejewelled accessories will add to the effect. One's headpiece would be good, covered with either fake or real stones. When fashions changed, hair would be decorated with gems, or women would wear hairnets studded with real or fake jewels. Moving down the body, a pomander, a ball full of aromatic substances, might be studded with gems and hung from the girdle, the waistband of the gown. The girdle obviously being studded with diamonds or pearls naturally. If not a pomander, then other little items would work. Scissors with jewels, prayer books with jewels, fans with jewels. Even the basic components of your clothing would be studded. Aiglets, clasps, buttons, all would be adorned with gems, as well as the bodices of gowns, the edges and the sleeves. Elizabeth I had buttons of gold decorated with lovers' knots, twinned hearts, roses and acorns, set with rubies and pearls. The furs that lined your clothing, or that you wore as a pelt or on your sleeves, would also be jewelled, basically turning a fur pelt into one single big piece of jewellery. Henry VIII had jewelled sable furs, one with a clock set into its head that was set with diamonds and rubies, with little paws of gold with sapphire claws. The other was just simply set with turquoise, rubies, diamonds, pearls, with a large ruby for a tongue. You could wear it over the shoulder, or carry it like a pet. As a matter of fact, just about everything that could be jewelled would be covered in gemstones and gold. You know, just a little casual outfit. The gentleman of substance would show his peers he was a man of worth by wearing a big gold chain, those big heavy ones you've seen in the portraits of Henry VIII or Thomas More. Henry owned a gold chain that weighed over 3 kilograms, studded with 16 huge spinels and diamonds, including a large one right at the centre, called the Great Mirror. Great men also bought them for their liverymen and their servants. Spread the wealth to show your wealth. Cardinal Wolsey's master chef wore one while he worked, and his chain was almost as large as the one owned by the cardinal himself. A servant or retainer might wear enamelled livery badges with the heraldic symbol of the family as well. The effect is for opulence. Whether or not the gems you wear are real, that's not important. Understated elegance is a later invention. The Tudor person of means should wear as much jewellery as they physically can at any one time. Jewellery epitomised some of the better qualities of the Renaissance. New artistry, technological insight, increased trade, economic boom. It was decorative and practical, displaying how the owner wanted to be perceived by the world, their heritage, their family ties, their politics, their religious beliefs. Jewels were a sign of who you were, your place within the divine hierarchy set out by God between the orders of heaven and the base animals. And the Tudors loved to show off. They wanted as much jewellery as their budget would allow, because extravagance and overindulgence were not quite the sins of fashion as they are thought to be today. There was never quite enough for the Tudor of means, but don't be fooled by the sumptuousness displayed in portraits. As luminous and magnificent and beautiful as they are the smallest minority of society, dressed in their absolute best for the sake of posterity. The common sorts did not have access to the beautiful pieces of the mega wealthy. The Cheapside hoard is notable as being the rare example. A yeoman might have a sealing ring with his family symbol. A wife might have a wedding ring, perhaps some earrings. A daughter might get bracelets or a simple gold chain for her bodice on her wedding day. But they would try to display themselves in the art of ornamentation when they could, a way to rise socially through appearance rather than by means. Looking the part? That's halfway to being the part. If you liked the video today, please give me a like, share and subscribe to keep up to date with any of my Tudor history happenings. If you wanted to like me even further, you can give me a one-time donation on Coffee down below, or check out my Amazon wishlist to help sustain my incurable, endless research habit. Next month I'm looking at a video of sexual language of the 16th century, maybe looking at expanding that, sort of how the Tudors thought of, conceived their ideas around sex, so that should be quite fun. Wherever you are, I hope you're keeping safe and well. And in case this video that was just about sort of looking at the idea of gemstones wasn't clear enough, fuck colonialism.